Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
All right, it's time once again for Music Night at the Majestic, and with us tonight, founding member of Confunkshun, Michael Cooper. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Good to be here. Good to be here.
I hope you say that once we wrap this thing up.
Oh, yeah. It's good to be here, man. We've got lots to cover, lots of future stuff, lots of past, lots of goodies. I'm writing the book, so this will be food for me. This will be good rehearsal for me.
All right. Well, tell you, we often say on the show, Michael, that every musician's journey starts somewhere. Where was that somewhere for you?
It would be Vallejo, California. Somewhere around 1954, 55, when my dad would get up every morning, and he was a sanitation worker, and he'd get up every morning around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and he'd put on music, make his coffee, grab whatever leftovers there was to grab. And I just got into the habit. And of course, the dog, we had a big German Shepherd, would get up with him and follow him all over the house. And then I'd get up somewhere around just about 10 to 15 minutes before he would leave. And I get up and ride my rocking horse and to the music. And just before he'd leave, he'd pick me up off the rocking horse and take me, put me back in the bed. Right. But he'd leave the music playing. So we all wake up to whatever was on the radio, whatever the radio station was, or one of his 78 records. You're probably too young to know what that is.
Oh, no, trust me. I've got a few in my collection, actually.
Yeah. But that would be my day, Monday through Friday. And then, of course, on the weekends was all about fishing. So my music, when we would go fishing, the AM radio would be playing. And of course, all of the hits, Smokey Robinson, James Brown, Bobby Blue Bland's, all the music that he and my sister would love would, of course, be playing on the radio all the way to the fish bank and all the way back. I remember one time we ran the battery down. In those days, it was very easy to run the battery down because your car had a 6-volt battery and it was there to start the car. That was pretty much it.
Yep.
And so as far as listening to the ball game and listening to the radio, you better bring an extra battery, right? And of course, we'd always wind up running the battery down and waiting for somebody to come give us a jump or something. So that's how much the music had to keep playing. The music had to play, and that's where my music career started. When I was 2, 3, 4 years old, I was hooked already on music.
Tell me this, Michael. When you think back to those mornings, your dad getting ready for work, what are some of the songs that have stuck with you that you would hear him playing?
Well, he was big band oriented, and he loved anything with strings, right? And he loved all the anything James Brown did in the 50s. My dad loved. When James Brown started, doing the 60s and getting those big 66, Papa Got a Brand New Bag and, Cold Sweat and all that. He pretty much lost my dad then because he had gotten into the commerciality of the music, where my dad used to like it when he had the big bands and the horns and all this kind of stuff. My dad's favorite record by James Brown was Prisoner of Love because it had the orchestration in it. But yeah, we just kept right on rolling, man. My biggest thing was James Brown, Bobby Blue Bland, who was a big band man, and Ray Charles, big band people, right? And I became inundated in Ray Charles. I just loved everything about Ray Charles, right? My sister's husband at the time, named Harvey, and he had the same Ray Charles gravel voice. When you hear Ray Charles talk and you hear him talk, they sound like the same. It's just my brother-in-law couldn't sing. He wasn't a musician. But when he opened his mouth, he was straight Ray Charles. Every time he opened his mouth, man, I used to love that.
Now tell me this. What was the first instrument that you gravitated to?
Drums. Let's put it like this. My cousin gave me an old mandolin, missing strings. I thumbed around on it for a while, and then she gave me an old guitar, and it had about 4 strings on it. And I messed around with that for a while. But a friend of mine, it was always something happening with someone would give me something. My parents couldn't buy any of this stuff. And someone gave me, a guy by the name of George McFarland, gave me a partial drum set. So it had a cymbal, a kick, a bass drum, but no snare drum. So I'd have to hit the side of the bass drum as a snare drum. And the first song that I played on the drums was Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman. After school, I would beat that, and I couldn't play it before I go to school because it was just too loud. But I'd come home and I'd put that on and I'd bang, 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 bang. When a man loves a woman. And I kept on doing that. And then I would graduate to another song and then another song until finally I got a snare drum. Right? And I began to play, and then finally I got a hi-hat cymbal. I didn't know what the hi-hat cymbal was until somebody showed me. Then it was time to go back to the guitar. And I used to drop into the music store, and when the guy wasn't looking, I'd just take something down and play it, right? And this guy's name was Don Herbert, and he owned this thing called Don Herbert's Music Warehouse or something. It was downtown Vallejo. And he would just let me fiddle around. And then one day he came up and he says, why don't you have your mom come down and we'll talk about you getting this bass guitar? I said, okay. Went home, told my mother. My mother made at that time $15 a day doing domestic work. And she came down and worked out a payment plan with him. I mean, it was something like maybe $4 a week. And bought me a Sears Silvertone bass, right? And I played the bass with no amp for about 3 weeks. And then I came in the store and he says, I got just the thing just for you. It was a big old giant old bass amp. I drug it home. The guy on the bus let me put it up on the bus. I drug it up on the city bus and it sat there in the middle of the floor. I got all the way back home. And that's how it all started. Me banging on drums given to me and my mom going down, getting a payment plan on a bass guitar. And then it took off like a rocket from there.
Well, I'm going to say, A, it was a very wise investment on your mother's part. And B, the guy with the music shop's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. Don Herbert.
Good deal. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to jump forward here. How did you guys go from Vallejo to Memphis?
Well, it happened in a flash. I'll recap quickly what happened to us. We actually had a band called Project Soul, high school band members, 4 of us, and we did the game dances and the after school dances, and we did the talent shows. And we began to attract other members. Like we got a guy to play tambourine and trumpet. We didn't have a horn section, but we had bass, guitar, lead guitar, drums, and keyboard. And these guys were all fiddling with these instruments. Nobody was prolific and nobody was really that good. We were all fiddlers. And we got a guy in to play trumpet by the name of Carl Fuller, who is with me today. This was in high school. And we attracted a lead singer by the name of Thurston Johnson. So now we had someone to sing. So we would learn one song, and then we'd learn another song. Then we'd learn a third song. Now we're ready to work. We got 3 songs. We didn't think about somebody calling us for a dance that lasts for an hour. So we wound up jamming for 10 minutes, and then we play a song, and then we play a song. Okay, we're going to play that again in like 20 minutes. We're going to play that again. So that's how it all started. And then it got better and better. We attracted Felton Pilot on trombone. We had ourselves a horn section. Felton was our music guru. And that's our connection, because we all had a manager named Mr. Joe Connors who owned a record shop, and we took turns working in that record shop. And we had this building that we rented and later bought, but we rented it and we would rehearse over the record shop up top, over the record shop. And one day the Soul Children Stax recording artist, Soul Children, came to the Bay Area to do an Angela Davis rally and had a big falling out with their band. And they came all the way from Memphis, Tennessee to fall out in California. Joe, the record company called Joe, and Joe said, listen, I got just the band. I got my band right here. Send the drummer over and send somebody over, and we'll listen to the records. And they were only going to do 2 songs. We'll listen to these 2 songs and we'll get them ready for the show. And of course, they sent their drummer over, who was a slave master, right? His name is Roy Cunningham. And he was a Memphis drummer, which means, man, he had that voice on him. Man, we got to get this right, man. Y'all too nervous, man. I'm too nervous. There ain't nothing wrong. Just some music, man. Just relax and play the music. And we finally worked it. So we said, this is a little bit over our head. So we called Felton Pilot. He had his own band across the tracks. He was across the tracks. His mom and dad bought him the best of everything. He had keyboards. He had trumpet. He had guitars. I mean, his mom was a school teacher and his dad was a gynecologist. So he was literally across the tracks. We had to cross over and go get him and say, man, look, we over our heads. Come in here and musically make sure everything is correct. He came over. We did this show at the Berkeley Community Theater. It was a smash. It was an absolute smash. They said, you guys are our band. Can you guys get away? They didn't even know that some of us were only 16, And we had Felton. I asked Felton, man, do you want to do this? And Felton said, yes, he wanted to do it. I knew I had my music covered. Everybody went to their parents. The parents said, well, listen, we have to at least talk to this guy. Okay. And his name was Norman West, the head of the Soul Children. He says, believe me, there will be no drugs. They will never be allowed to drink any alcohol. We will take care of them. We will watch over them. And we will pay them. And this was supposed to be temporary for a minute, but we had to get in the car with a U-Haul trailer, head from California to Memphis, Tennessee in late 1971. And that's how our music career started.
Wow. It always amazes me how things, when it's meant to be, things just fall into place.
Yeah.
Not saying that you didn't work your butts off to do it. You guys didn't have the talent to do it, but it's a story. So many successful bands and artists where things, happened. They were in the right place at the right time. They had the talent to back it up. And that's where it all began.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had a angel on our shoulder, at all times. One way or another. I was one of the goody two shoes guys, and Felton was a goody two shoes type of guy. We had, we didn't gang bang. All we cared about was music. That's all we cared about. Myself was music, sports, hunting, and fishing. So that's all I cared about. And then, you'd have a girlfriend here, but she'd always take a back seat. You wouldn't have her for long because she'd take a back seat to all that other stuff, Here we are in Memphis, though. Once we got to Memphis, we knew this for real. This is it. You can't just go get mad and go home to mom. You're like 1,600 miles away. That's it. Mm-hmm. And that became our college, more so to speak. We all had attended junior college in Vallejo and Fairfield, but this now was the absolute meat and potatoes of on-the-job training. And we started from scratch. All of us. We lived in one apartment. We shared our food. We shared our money. We voted. The vote system was, and the fine system was our disciplinary situation where everybody would have to walk, stay in line, get yourself together. There won't be no drugs in this apartment. There won't be any drugs in the car. There won't be no weed smoking. If you're going to do that, you better go do it outside because you ain't doing it in this apartment. So it was just, we had a regiment and a set of rules and to live by. And we went to Memphis, Tennessee. And we were one of the greatest backup bands anyone could ever have because we worshiped the Soul Children for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now tell me this, working with Rufus Thomas, what was that like?
Well, at first it was really scary because Rufus Thomas was like Bruno Mars at that time. I mean, he was just a giant. He had the breakdown and the funky chicken. And I mean, he was just a giant. He was literally bigger than the Soul Children. He was probably Stax's number 1 or number 2 artist, right? And the way we got to working with Rufus Thomas is he poached us whenever he could. We were a copy band in between backing the Soul Children, right, to make a little extra money. So we would have to learn the hits from everybody, right? And of course, we wound up learning the breakdown, the funky chicken, right? And Rufus would come on a Soul Children's date, made a backroom deal with the promoter. The promoter would grease his palms. He would put on his hot pants and white go-go boots and walk out on our stage, right? And the people would go crazy. And he knew that we knew the breakdown. He knew that we knew the funky chicken, right? And he would turn around and just look at us. No money was discussed. No arrangements were made. He would just say, hey, fellas, y'all ready for it? Y'all ready for it? Well, here it is. He would play. His money would be in his pockets. He would wave at the audience. He would thank us and leave. This went on here and there. And the Soul Children in awe of him. So they weren't going to approach him, right? They thought it was just the greatest thing. They acted like they produced him on that show, like it was their idea, right? And one day we got Wattstax, the movie. Mm-hmm. And of course, at that time, it became for real. And we did get paid to play behind him by the record company. Mm-hmm. But little did we know we were going to be playing for 102,000 people on a movie. And that's a whole nother world.
Tell me this. What do you remember about walking out there and seeing that crowd and, taking it all in?
I remember reminding myself to breathe. I remember holding onto my guitar like it was the last guitar I will ever hold in my life. And I remember they didn't give me a chance to tune up, right? So, and in those days, you'd have a auto tune. I forgot what it's called. You plug it in and you tune your guitar, or you use a microphone, you tune your guitar, or someone would hit the note you needed on the keyboard. And I remember having to tune up by listening to the act before us, right? So, of course, that's added to my nervous. One of my biggest things is worry was to be playing out of tune. And they were heard, everything was hustle and bustle and hustle and bustle. Okay. We did the Soul Children. We knew that stuff frontwards and backwards, and that was not a problem. But they knew that Rufus didn't have a band, and the only band that was going to be available was Confunkshun. So they had the Soul Children pay us to play the breakdown, the funky chicken. Luckily, they scheduled it to when Soul Children went off, we stayed on stage. 3 horns, a Hammond organ, clavinet, 3 horns, drums, bass, guitar. We stayed on stage. And we looked at those people. It was something that you could not imagine. Pandemonium, these people. And the guy said, are you ready to do it? And he started naming the song. Are you ready to do the breakdown? Are you ready to do the funky chicken? And the audience, 100,000 people yelling. He had to wait for them to calm down so he can say, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rufus Thomas. We had not rehearsed, so we had to be told what to do. All he did again in those same pink hot pants and go-go boots is walk, and he had a cape on this time, and he walked out on stage, and the audience went crazy. And he turned around in a circle, and he looked at us, and he smiled, and he turned back around to us and walked out to the microphone, looked left, looked right, and then reached down and grabbed his cape and pulled it out like a set of wings. He says, hey, y'all. He said, ain't I'm clean? And there you go. Now we got to wait another 5 minutes for them to stop screaming. So he ended up half his show with the audience screaming at him in his uniform. And at that point, he knew he had to defuse us and calm us down, because that noise and that kind of loudness right? And we were trying to keep our instruments tight so they wouldn't make any noise, because this is a movie. And he turned around, he looked at us, and he looked everybody in the eye, and he bucked his eyes. And he looked to the left like that, and the same old thing. And he knew how to get us into the spirit. He said, "Hey, fellas, y'all ready for it?" And we said, "Yeah." He said, "I said it, Ma, y'all ready for it?" "Yeah." Then he did it for a third time. I said, "Are you ready for it?" And we said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, here it is. Lord have mercy. My guitar sounded so good. It was just a blessing to hear them. I played it. It answered me, and we were off to the races. At that point, the nerves started dialing back, and the audience went nuts. Rufus was off the chain. We went on to the Funky Chicken. We killed him. We murdered them. He was the biggest thing on the show. Isaac Hayes did all right. Everybody did okay. Rufus Thomas murdered him, backed by Confunkshun. At the time, we were Project Soul, but we quickly, in about a year, changed our name to Confunkshun.
Wow. What a great story. And for you, what a great memory.
Oh, man. You can tell. Every time I tell that story, I have about 20 or 30 stories that I tell that move me, some of them to tears sometimes, but they move me because those stories, if I was going like this down a road, that story moved me over here and I start going that way. So there must have been an obstacle up there. And then another story would hit and would move me over here. So there must have been an obstacle up there. And all the time, to me, it was just God driving the wheel. He was just saying, "Okay, let me show you how this is going to go." And the book I'm writing is just going to have all the stories, man. It's going to have them all.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So, well, tell you what, Michael, again, for the sake of time, I'm going to jump forward here. You guys got signed to Mercury. You'd already done, some recordings, but Mercury was a big step for you guys. Tell me about going in and recording that first album for them.
The first album was recorded, I would say, partially in Memphis and partially mostly in Memphis. We got signed to Mercury with a 2-album deal, right? So he had 2 bites at the apple. The first one was called Confunkshun, and it had no hits. It came out. Terrible album cover. It's a couple of hands holding some grapes. Let our friend Linda Lou talk us into that. No title, just Confunkshun, and no hit. So here we are, still in the clubs. We put a record out. The record sold about 30,000 copies around the tri-state area, with the stations that took pity on us and played a couple of things, but it wasn't really happening. So we were back in the clubs, which is embarrassing, back in the same old clubs that we were in. In the meantime, the Bar-Kays signed to the same label. Their first album hit like a rocket, Too Hot to Stop. The guy that signed us, and I got to tell you how this happened. The guy, we leading up to how we got our recording contract, there was an office branch in Memphis on Union Avenue. It was Mercury Records branch that was their home away from home. And they could share the Arden Studios and all that stuff there. So they had an office, and the guy that manned the office was named Judd Phillips. And Judd would see us every now and then at some of the different outdoor concerts and stuff, but we weren't in the running to get signed. So we did our original recordings and stuff. And one day, the guy in the Bar-Kays, Alan Jones, said, "Why don't you go down? I'll bring you down. You talk to Judd Phillips." Because they signed us, man, and it was just like a piece of cake. And Judd said, "You know what, Michael? I'll give you guys a shot, but I got to run it by Charlie. Charlie Fash was the head guy up in Chicago." He says, "Well, let's give him a two record deal and see what happens." Well, of course, they gave us a 2-record deal. Charlie actually flew down to the club where we were playing at 7:00 in the morning, got off a plane in Chicago. We set up at about 7:30 in the club. The club is like an old movie theater. And it was big. It held 900 people, like an old movie theater. We set up in full uniform, these orange jumpsuits and flop hats. I mean, we set up in full uniform. And he came through the door and stood, put his back on the wall, right? He said, "Hey, Mike, what you got? Let me hear it." Right? And he was calling me by my first name, which was so cool, right? And we played maybe 3 songs. And of course, he looked at his watch and looked at his watch. You know, we played 3 songs. He's way in the back. He never came up and greeted us or nothing, never shook our hand. When we got through with the 3rd song, we had this last song, it had police gumball machines going. And we just, you know, we were all that. It was just a wonderful show. When we played the last note and he went to step to the door and he said, "Hey, Mike, have Juddy give me a call." And went out and caught his cab and went back to the airport. Right? So, of course, an hour later, I'm on the phone with Judd Phillips, and Judd saying, "Hey, well, I haven't heard anything yet, Mike. I'll let you know, you know." This is about 9:30 in the morning, right? Days going by. Remember, there's no cell phones. There's no, we didn't even have answering machines at that time. Nothing. So, of course, you don't want to leave the phone all day long. You're sitting in the house all day long, right? We had this Princess telephone that had a long cord on it. So I'd drag it from one end of the apartment to the other, drag it back to just finally around about 3:40 in the afternoon, right? Phone rings and it's Judd Phillips. And he says, "Micah." That's what he's Southern, right? "Micah." I said, "What? Are you sitting down?" I said, "No." He said, "Congratulations, you are now Mercury recording artist." I lost my mind.
I bet you did.
I lost my mind. I couldn't even dial fast enough trying to call everybody. I lost my mind.
Oh,
anyway, so now going forward, we our first album we cut and it bombed. And then Charlie told Judd, he said, tell him, don't worry about it. We got another one ready to go. Just go out but I'm going to send you out to California where you guys are from, right? And you're going to go out there and you're going to record at the Automat Studios out in California. And that's what we did. We wound up going to California, and he hit the nail right on the head, because as soon as we got to California back home and we got in the studio, everything seemed like everything we did sounded like a record. But we had one record that I had written while we were on a gig in Little Rock, Arkansas, called Ffun, Ffun, Ffun. And when we recorded that record, the engineer in the Automat at San Francisco says, "Man, that's your first single." He said, "I'm telling you, he said, and I wouldn't wait." He said, "I would go ahead and send that to the record company." We sent it to the record company, and nothing is instantaneous, remember, so you got to send something, wait for it to get there and for them to actually play it and then get back to you by phone. A couple of days later, they said, "We got our single," and gave us a release date. "You guys keep on working and keep on working, get the record." So I think we only had 7 songs, maybe 7. I don't think no more than 8, the 7 songs on the Secrets LP. And we came back to Memphis and we took the picture at one of the old Union Planters bank vaults, and it was called Secrets. And then while we're taking that picture, getting that album ready, Ffun, Ffun, Ffun was dropped, and it was headed up the charts with a bullet, right? The record dropped, bang, Secrets came out. We wound up in about 2.5 months, we were gold. So and Ffun went number 1 in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's fantastic.
The only problem was you had to back it up. You had to come back with another one. And that was the kicker. And I should tell you this story, because you may not ask me this question. While that record was number 3 with a bullet and was headed for number 1, the record company called management and said, "Listen, we need a backup. We don't hear another hit on this album. You guys only got 1 hit on this album." They put out Show Feels Good to Me, and they knew it wasn't going to happen. We said, "We need something that's going to hit the radio smoking." So we're out at the Montgomery, Alabama, one of these big marching bands was playing Ffun, Ffun, Ffun because it was number 1. And we went to the game to see them play our song. It was unbelievable. So I didn't want to see the rest of the game. So I left early, and I'm walking back from the stadium to the hotel. I'm walking to the hotel. I mean, it's like maybe 98 degrees outside. This guy rolls up with his windows down, and he's playing this record. It's on the radio. And I'm listening, I'm walking, and he's got it up loud as hell. And you're hearing this record, it's going, da, 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 oh, honey, honey, da, 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 you are my. And I'm listening, I'm looking at it, I'm going like, hey, I got an idea for the next single. We had a bus with a 4-track studio on it, right? We had rented a bus, had a 4-track studio in it. I ran back, and I played the drums on my guitar. And I came up with these chords, right, that matched the Archie's melody, not the music. The music, I came up with the music but you could sing both songs over either music could house both songs. And I wrote "Shake and Dance with Me," but I had to put a bridge in it to make sure it was really different, right? And I did the "Shake and Dance with Me" and the bridge. Only but one verse at first. I didn't have a second verse until we actually got in the studio. And I told the guys, I got the next single. So let's hear it. And we all gathered around in the bus, and I played guitar, and everybody sung. They said, okay, cool. And we called this company. Company said, okay, get out to California, right, and get started on the next album, but we need that single right away. We got out to California, went to a different studio. We recorded "Shake and Dance with Me." Again, sent it to the company, kept on recording the album. We get done with the album, and we had a great person that designed our album cover, it had the heart on it and everything. They dropped "Shake and Dance with Me." "Shake and Dance with Me" came on the charts, I think, at 30-something with a bullet. They dropped the album. "Shake and Dance with Me" did not go number one. I think it went like number 4 or something like that. But because of the momentum, they dropped the album. We are now out on tour because of Ffun, Ffun, Ffun. We're back on the tour, but we got to add "Shake and Dance with Me" to the show. We roll into Chicago. We get in the hotel rooms. The hotels has a big bouquet of roses in every room and these plaques that they had made up. It said, "Congratulations, Love Train certified gold in 6 weeks."
Wow.
So just like that,
Wow.
Secrets, Love Train, gold. We were on our way.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, not to get too far ahead on it, but talking about Secrets, the opening track, "Do What You Want to Do." Yeah. I always loved that track. Yeah.
That's live. That was a live. It was written live. And of course, we then took it to the studio and recorded it for record. But what you were hearing with "Do What You Want to Do" is one of the ways we would open our show. It became pretty doggone arrogant after a while. We started opening the show with our original material, right? So we would try it out on the audience, right? And "Do What You Want to Do" was just a crowd. Everybody would get out of their seats and play. But it wasn't a single. It was just a make you want to dance kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we had quite a few records like that, quite a few. I'm shocked that you remember that. I didn't remember that one off just like that.
Well, one of the things that's always struck me with Confunkshun albums is you guys always, the opening track is, a powerful thing that's like right in your face out the get-go.
Yeah.
And, I'm an up-tempo guy. Not that I don't love ballads. I love a good ballad, but I'm an up-tempo guy. So, you drop the needle on a Confunkshun record, you're into it, right from the get-go. So like, Love Shine, so easy.
Yep.
Yeah. So now on that record, didn't Sheila E. play with you? Of course, she was Sheila Escovedo at that time, but didn't she play on that record with you guys?
Yeah, he did. But there's an Escovedo on every record we've ever recorded. I think with the exception of the first record, the first album we did it in Memphis. But after that, I do believe there's an Escovedo on every single record. I mean, we were so close to the Escovedo family throughout Oakland, San Francisco. Their dad's brother, Coke Escovedo, played with Santana. And so he had a very big name. And then that was a dad's brother. And then Pete Escovedo, dad, we call him Pops, was 100%. I mean, he was the go-to guy. But I'm probably little did we know that his children were coming up to be monsters on the percussion. And yes, we had Sheila, Peter Michael, both played on every single Confunkshun album, and Pops all played on Confunkshun albums.
Wow, that's very cool. Yeah. Now, Love Shy, that was also the first album that you guys worked with Skip Scarborough, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Now, there's a guy audio work.
How do I say this? Another one of those pivotal moments in our lives when we met Skip Scarborough. We met him basically music first, reputation first. And we had a little bit of an arrogant attitude towards the company because they made the decision. They sent him his company the money to produce us, a nice sum of money. And so we were being very arrogant about being produced when we had the first two hits on our own, right? When we met him and we talked to him and we listened to him, and he talked to us while sitting on the piano, he was playing piano, right? And we were talking to him, and then every now and then he would break off into one of his hits, right? With Earth, Wind, and Fire or something that he had played with Bill Withers or something like that. And so he said, well, why don't we get started, man? Let's record. Let's get recorded. He said, let me tell you, I got a couple of things here that I like the titles on. Why don't you guys play this for me? So we start playing different cuts for him. And we wound up doing, I think it was one of the first things recorded with Skip, a song called Juicy. And it was a little lick, calypso lick that I wrote while waiting for my uncle to pick me up at the LAX airport. And when he heard me play it and the band kind of joined in with me, he said, that's it. And he had him put a microphone in the center of the room. He put his headphones on and we went over it. We went on it a couple of times. He asked Lewis to kind of back it down. I remember he gave Lewis a couple of tips on what to do with the drums, right? And what you hear on the record is actually what happened. And I begged them to leave it in the record, and they did. He was so magical of a human being. He got out on the floor, raised his hand, both of his hands up, got everybody's attention. He said, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. And Felton had the sense to play an intro lick when he got to 1, 2, and Felton goes dum 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 bang. And when that record, Sheila was bopping and playing. And when we got to the end of that record, we were mad that we had to quit. We were mad that we had to quit. We knew it wasn't a single, but the magic, the Skip Scarborough magic in a tune that just played over and over. Skip Scarborough's heavy on the chords. He's a chord progression man. You know, fake you out with the chords and get a hit, man. But he took my chords, didn't change anything, but he went out on the floor and directed the band on the tempo and how to make it feel. And to this day, Juicy is my favorite Confunkshun song. I got another favorite, which is called Got to Be Enough, but that's another story.
Tell me.
Got to Be Enough. Well, Got to Be Enough was one, I think maybe the next album or 2 albums down. Got to Be Enough there's a gentleman by the name of Jerry Peters that was supposed to do the, what did they call it in those days? The contracting, meaning if it was going to have horns and strings by people other than inside our band, then you'd have to have a contractor or a producer. And we recorded Got to Be Enough. I wrote the lyrics, Felton wrote the music, and we got in the studio and we recorded it. no horns, no strings, right? So it was rhythm section and vocals. It was pretty cool, pretty nice. But we still hadn't gotten our single yet. So Jerry said, well, I'm going to take the track down to LA and I'm going to put strings and horns on it. Of course, okay. We had $250,000 budget, so he could do whatever he did. So he took the song down there. We worked on other things. He came back. He put the song up, right? And he had hired the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. And they came in and he had sheet music. He put sheet music on all the stands. Now he put the song is sitting over there on the doggone reel-to-reel machine waiting to be played. We haven't heard anything he did in LA. The guy pushes up a rough mix, right? The contractor for the strings has to watch the Christmas tree to make sure that it's not going into record for at least one run through. Because they don't want you recording the strings twice because you got to pay us twice. We got to do it twice. So he gives you one run through and he's making sure the Christmas tree is in green. You hit the play. The song comes on. Comes on and I'm playing the guitar. Right. And all of a sudden here comes this horn line. And here another horn line answer. And we're like, he says, gentlemen, he says, I present you the Earth, Wind, and Fire horns. He didn't want to tell anybody anything because he knew we were going to be blown away. We're listening to these horns. In the meantime, he goes out on the floor and he's got one chance to direct the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. When he started directing that orchestra and they started playing with that hit, that song, we looked at each other and says, man, we got another hit. It was a rough mix. Horns were a little loud. He out there on the floor and we knew it was a hit. There was no doubt in my mind. It's one of the most strangest, weirdest things that comes over you when you actually can look at each other and know this is our next single, right? And by the time they got through playing and all the strings and everything, and then they said did a rough mix on it, he wouldn't give anybody a copy. Nobody gets a copy. No, it ain't ready. Wait till I finish it. You're going to love it. Wait till I finish it. That's, the LA producers, they were like that. They keep the artists in suspense, and, Got to Be Enough was born. And when I heard Got to Be Enough when it was finished, I had that same feeling. I was thinking, oh my God, listen to this. Right. And what can I say? Got to Be Enough. When I'm on the stage, because I know we're not going to play Juicy on the show, I always tell the audience, hey, y'all, can I play my favorite song? And they say, yeah. And everybody thinks it's going to be Love Train. I play my favorite song. And when the drummer starts, right, we give drum solo and the percussion player solo. But then when I hit the guitar, the audience goes bananas. So we just got stories, man. I got stories.
Well, you talk about the Spirit of Love album. Yeah, another track that I love on there is Love Struck. Because I love the guitar, the horns, and the keyboard riff in that.
Yeah, me and you have to differ. We're Paak company on that one. I bought that record from a guy named Tony, I think Tony Dwayne. And he was a guitar player and it's very guitar heavy. And I got it from it and we doodled around with it. And, I just hated it. But it was
I'm glad I could bring it up, Michael.
But it was up tempo. And I'd say, well, we'll keep it, man. And the company, they kind of went, but yeah, it's up tempo and it's funky, we'll keep it,
I'll tell you that same year, the Touch album came out. Now that one has, one of your tracks in there that's, one of my favorites. Yeah. With for me, favorite songs all depends on, what mood I'm in, what time of day it is, what have you. Yeah. However, Too Tight is a song for me that's always in contention.
Too Tight is another record that I wrote strictly for radio. I wrote it at the pool at the Holiday Inn in San Diego. I could have electrocuted myself and other people because I ran a extension cord from my room, which I had a balcony. It was the same level as the pool. I ran an extension cord out for where I was sitting so I could use my Porta Studio. And I took my guitar and I wrote it on the little 4-track Porta Studio out there. And at that time, Cheryl Lynn, To Be Real, and The Emotions, so Cheryl Lynn was To Be Real, The Emotions. I got that idea to do that syncopated kick drum. Dun, 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 So that's like To Be Real, and the emotions, I can't think of the emotion songs that was like that. It was a huge hit. It was Earth, Wind and Fire backing them up.
Best of My Love?
Best of My Love. Yes, Best of My Love. So Best of My Love and To Be Real influenced the beat of Too Tight, right? And the chords are just plain on Confunkshun chords, right? And I was in love with a girl. That helped, right? That helped. It helped to be in love with somebody. And I was always writing a song that kind of touched on what this girl was all about. And we'd fight a lot. We used to argue and fight a lot, but some right, some wrong. But then it becomes sweet and tight with a sweet song. And so weak for so long, but our love is too tight and too strong, right? And I put it all together, and here we go. We had another hit. That was our only pop song that we had that crossed over pop. Too Tight. Yeah. We wound up doing it for what's her name? Dionne Warwick. Solid Gold.
Yeah. Well, say the title track of that album, Touch. I love the bass on that.
Woo! Hot.
Yes, it is.
Girl. Guy by the name of Big Gary Johnson. Bless his heart. He passed away in a automobile accident shortly after he recorded that. There's another song called Ladies Wild. He wrote the bass line to that. He actually gave me the bass line. And to see him play this bass, right? He's a sort of a portly guy, and his tummy pushed his guitar out a little bit. But he'd play that bass and he'd thump that bass. And of course, our bass player was a little angry with us because he hadn't quite mastered the thumping like these guys had done. And when I did Too Tight, I had to get him to play on it. I just had to get him to play. He was just that tight. And then he played on Ladies Wild, which he wrote after that. But yeah, Too Tight's bass line, man, it's a winner. It's why we drew the song out and let it last for almost 5.5 minutes. So you could hear that bass and the strings, and our boy again, Jerry Peters, put strings on it, right? And of course, same thing, Earth, Wind and Fire horns. So we had to go back to the well.
That's a good well.
Yeah, we had to go back to the well on that one.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I love about Confunkshun is the fact that a lot of times a group will dabble in, for lack of a better description, incorporate different genres or sounds. But there's always one that they excel at. With Confunkshun, whether it was funk, R&B, soul, jazz, it was seamless. It wasn't like you were, a funk band trying to do these other things or a jazz band trying to do with it. The musicianship, you guys were solid all the way through. So all the songs, whatever you're in mood for, they're there, they're tight.
We prided ourselves on live, because you remember there was a certain time where things became, 808 heavy, drum machines and things like that. And we were very loosey-goosey. We were not tight like, say, a Barcades or a Cameo or an SOS band. We weren't tight like that. We were like, okay, let's go in the studio, run through it a couple of times and let it fly. So in Ffun, there's probably 2 or 3 tempo changes. Too Tight starts to speed up towards the end. We weren't tight, but that's what made us. That's the California Memphis sound we were just going to play it from the heart. And if we needed to go back and overdub some stuff, we would do that. But we would try to get it in that take so that people would feel our head bob and feel our body motion. Now, we could have laid the drums and then laid the guitar, then laid the bass, took days and dialed it all in, and then laid it and make sure it's absolutely tight like people do today. You know, it's got to be perfect. Got to run through a computer. We wouldn't do that back then. We played it. What you hear on Too Tight, Got to Be Enough, Fun, and Shake and Dance with Me are live musicians sitting there looking at each other, bobbing our heads, getting a feel for the music. And usually there's a producer that says, that's it right there. That's the one we're going to work with. So that's kind of the way we did it. We did it all the way out. We did it all the way out to until the Electric Lady. Mm-hmm. That's when we had to yield to the masses, you know, something different, you know.
Well, yeah, for me, a lot of times the human element, for lack of a better description, gets lost and it becomes sterile if it's too perfect. Yeah, I like the raw. I want to be able to feel the emotion, the humanness, or what, you know, for lack of a better description in my music.
Yeah. We worked with Emir Deodato on the Fever album, and I don't know if we had a hit prior to Fever, but we spent a little while there where we were in the slumps, and I think we had maybe one or two albums left on our contract. And we wound up working with Emir Deodato, and we came up with a record. It came from outside the group. A guy named Van Ross Reddy wrote it, called Baby I'm Hooked. And we worked with Deodato on that. And it brought us kind of back to the being produced thing. And Deodato, of course, was on fire with Kool and the Gang, right? You know, he had come off his own hit. He had his own instrumental hit.
Right.
Everybody
knows that. Zarathustra.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. And we got lucky enough to be produced by him. And out of that efforts we had a couple of really nice songs, but one that hit for us was Baby I'm Hooked. And we had a ball. When we were back off to the races again, we actually learned that we had a hit with Baby I'm Hooked while we were in Japan playing at one of our old clubs, because we had a big 1.5 year lull between hits. So we didn't have the tours that we had before. We were getting nightly. But so of course, Mr. Matsuyama at the Mugen Club called up and wondering if he could afford us. And we said it might be nice to go back and do something like we used to do while we're waiting on our next hit. And I remember laying in my bed at the Akasaka Tokyo Hotel, and I turned the Far East Network on the radio right next to my bed. And I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, here comes this record. And it was all in Japanese, and all you could hear was blah, 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 Con Funk Shun, right? And when the record came on, I jumped up out of my bed, and you got to imagine now how we had hit after hit after hit after hit, right? We're used to having hits. We're not used to not having a hit. So I jumped up out of bed, and I turned the volume up, and I was like, oh my God, we got another hit, right? Because it wouldn't be playing it on that radio station if it wasn't already a hit back in the States. Mm-hmm. And so when we got home, we came home. I think we were over there like 3 weeks, and we came home to a slew of phone calls, and here we go again, out on the road again. Time to do it. Get going, boys. Get up. Mm-hmm. It's hit time.
I'll tell you, the album before Fever was To the Max.
Yeah.
And that's the album you mentioned before, Love's Train. Yeah. On that. So, which has had 2 lives.
Well, the weird thing about that, the song was a unique song. A lot of things happened within that span, say this time period, leading up to recording that album actually coming out. And that's the one that did not have a hit. Mm-hmm. We released all these up-tempo songs. None of them hit. And the record company said, that's okay, because the radio stations had already started carting up and playing Love's Train, right? And of course, Love Train is a true story. You know, Felton and I were dating the same girl and pretty much just stopped speaking to each other. And we're the major songwriters for the band, right? And after I took this track he gave me and wrote about what had happened to us, the three of us, and then to have the group vote on it and pick it, and then have the record company say, okay, you know what? We're just going to leave it in the album. Let radio keep playing it. The song still sold over 400,000 copies of the album, right? So To the Max never had a hit single. Not one hit single, right? So 400,000 copies with no hit single. And Love Train was never a single until
Bruno and Anderson came along.
Yep. Yep.
Now, what was it like for you the first time you heard that, their version?
I'm pretty much sitting where I am now in my studio with a cup of coffee, and I'm getting ready to check my messages, and I picked my phone up, and it was a message from my daughter, and it started off with, Dee Dee, that's what she calls me, have you heard this? Right? And I scrolled down, and she sent me a link. And I hit the link, right? And the link has this little sort of flyer, and it starts playing Love Train. Now, keep in mind, I don't know who Silk Sonic is at this time, right? I just hadn't planted it in my memory. I heard about it, but I didn't know, and I had only heard one song, Leave the Door Open. And it just said Silk Sonic, right? Right? And it had this, what's called, sitting there with a cowboy hat on. Anderson looking like Ike Turner. And I'm like, what's this? And and when it started playing, I'm looking at the phone. Then I had to scroll down a little lower, and it said Love's Train. And when it got to the first verse, right, and he said, to the hook, if by chance, I stopped it. I ran out to the car, put it in the car so I could really hear it. Mm-hmm. Put it on Bluetooth, fired it up again. I'm listening to this, right? And then I'm thinking, the next thing jumped in my mind, oh my God, we're about to make a lot of money. Right? And I listened to it all the way through, right? Then I decided to drive and listen to it one more time. I pulled over and I called Felton. I said, Felton, I sent him the link. I said, let's look at your phone. He said, what? I said, did you set this up? He said, no, I did not. I will get back to you. Right? And so, of course, Felton went online to find out what was going on and what had happened. He text me back. He said, Mike, this is a special Valentine's release by Silk Sonic, Bruno Mars. And I'm like, oh my God. So, of course, I get back home and I go to Alexa and I say, Alexa, play Silk Sonic. And so Alexa starts playing all this stuff from this Evening with Silk Sonic album, right? So I just quick 1 hour, and in that 1 hour, I fell in love with him. Just like, my God, I have not heard this record. All I heard is the one single. I haven't heard all this stuff, right? You know, 777 and Smoking Out the Window, and I'm listening. I'm going, oh my God, this is great, right? And then the phone starts ringing and ringing and ringing. Everybody's waking up, starting their day to this cover of Love's Train, right? And then by the end of the day, I go to my email. I haven't even gotten to the email. I go to the email and I've got about 60 or 70 congratulations from all over the world. Everybody, congratulations, man. You got Silk Sonic just record your Love Train. And then, oh my God, that's in the first day. Over the next couple of weeks, man, it was pandemonium. We wound up having a rehearsal in Atlanta, starting our tour in Atlanta. We immediately changed the tour to the Love Train tour. We call the tour Love Train Reboarded. We immediately got the idea. I'm a Tony Soprano fan. And Tony Soprano's shrink, right? Mel B, his shrink, he was worried that when he got out of the hospital that his guys weren't going to respect him like they used to. And he actually told his shrink that. And she looked at him and she says, you know what? Just act as if. He said, what do you mean? She said, act as if. And in this case, nothing had happened. Be your same self. In my case, act as if you put this record out. Because that's all you can do. It's out. Mm-hmm. It's happening, right? Every radio station in the world knows it's a Confunkshun record. Everyone knows it's a Confunkshun record. But it's being done by Bruno Mars and Silk Sonic. So just go out and play your shows and act as if you got something to do with that. We hadn't a clue how it happened. We had gotten rid of our publishing. All we had was writers. We didn't know the publishing company is free to do whatever they want with the record. Mm-hmm. We did our first show, and I memorized this one part of their version, right? And we finally get to Love Train. We rehearsed and put Love Train now towards the end. And I did this little thing that Anderson does, a little ad lib that he does. I'll bet you do, bet you do, bet you. And the audience went crazy. First thing the disc jockey on the show told me, he says, man, you know what? Y'all the big dogs. He said, they got all the money, but y'all the big dogs. You ain't got to do their version. Do your version. Stick with your version. You ain't got to do their version. But we did wind up taking and putting on our version, we had me open it up a cappella with the keyboard player. So we wound up going back to the original version, but we added the horns like they did. And I don't have to tell you, man, when we got to Atlanta and we played that record, the radio stations were playing Bruno Mars by day, Confunkshun by night. They played both versions. Every radio station played both versions. They were going to be playing us anyway because we're coming to town, but they played Bruno Mars because he was number one with Love Train, and they'd play us by night. And when we got to Atlanta in 2022, the show was on fire. When we rolled off and started to play Love Train, we said, we got a little song we want to play for you. I wonder if you ever heard this. And we went and we did our regular intro. And I went, if by chance, everybody went crazy, right? But it wasn't until we rolled it off and put the horns on it. We couldn't hear ourselves. It was only 6,500 people, but we could not hear ourselves. We couldn't hear it. They were so loud. And of course, prior to that show, Felton and I had gone to see Bruno and Anderson to thank them backstage at the MGM. And we saw the show. And when we saw them play Love Train, it was just tears and tears and tears, man. It was spiritual. And I didn't think I would feel that again until I got to Atlanta and we played it. And that city had been inundated by that version. And they screamed so loud that when I got to the first verse, tears just running down my face. And I wound up getting through the song. And at the end of the song, we got our version and we take it out. Come on and ride it. And the people they were so loud, right? And I'm playing a rock guitar at the end. I'm not singing anymore. I'm playing rock guitar. And finally we get to the last one. Come on and ride. And they go up again. And I go to walk off the stage and I just turn around and came back to the stage. I just stood there just crying like a baby. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, like I said, I got lots of stories, man.
That's a good one. Well, I'll tell you, the new album. You guys got a new album that's going to be coming out shortly.
New album. I had planned to have my little Bluetooth speaker handy, just to hold it up and play some stuff for you. But I knew that wasn't kind of like what the show's about. The new album is actually done. We're waiting on the cover, getting the cover done. We got a new song in from the Ohio Players. Oh, sorry about that. Got a new song in from the Ohio Players. It's called We Can Work It Out. Old school record. So I got together with our guy KC and I kind of brought it a little more forward, with the sounds, and I put voice box, Roger Troutman style voice box on it, just so we can have a real up tempo groove when we say when the album jumps off, you got this up tempo, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no doubt about who it is, no doubt about it. When it comes on, it's like, oh, them boys are back and they funky again. There's one it's called "We Can Work It Out." We've got another song on there, which I'm hoping is our next first single. Everything's a first single now. And it's called "They Don't Even Know." And it's aimed at radio and younger audience, right? And then we've got the Bruno Mars cover. We covered Silk Sonic. We decided to pay them back, and we recorded "Leave the Door Open." And that may be the next single, but since we missed our Valentine's Day deadline, we were going to drop it on Valentine's Day like them. We missed it. So now it may be released towards the end of the summer. If the album turns out to be a June release, then we'll be able to hold it till next February. And so it's kind of an ifs and maybe. Record company's really upset with me. They sent me a long email about not, going faster and moving quicker. This record has to have some money spent on it. We've got to get terrestrial radio. And you can't move fast. If you're not rich, you can't just move fast. You got to get to a point where your money's coming in, it's building up. Okay, now we can throw a ton of money at a single and drop the album at the same time and get that momentum off that one chunk of money. And they don't agree with that. They think we should just keep dropping singles until the cows come home, with little bits of money. And you're not going to get terrestrial radio without a big chunk of money, $20,000, $30,000 right out of the bat. You're not going to get any airplay. Only way to get your price up and get things moving is to really have some good, solid terrestrial airplay.
Yeah. It's a different world now.
Totally. In that aspect, it's the same because let's just say it's payola. And payola was live and well back in the 50s and is live and well today. But basically, anybody in a top 10 today has basically put out 75 to 100 grand to be in that top 10. Mm-hmm. And it used to be like, oh man, be quiet. Don't say that. I'm tired, man. I'm too old. I'm telling the truth.
Tell me, talk about different worlds. What's it like recording this record versus recording the first album that you guys did? What's the difference in the studio, in the recording process?
Well, the recording back then was a joy. It was a love. It was an event, and it was a daily event, and you had to have other people involved. Today, it's all, I'll record a vocal and send it to Felton, and he'll take that vocal and tune it and put it on the music, send it back to me. He'll mix it. It's all done in these bedroom-sized studios. And in some cases in hotel rooms. We've actually done vocals that actually made it to the record on laptops, with you might see my blue microphone back there in the back. Mm-hmm. That's a USB microphone. So it'll plug into your phone and give you great quality. It's a USB microphone. So unfortunately, now we'll go in the studio. There was one cut. We didn't have one on this album. Last album in 2015, we were able to go in the studio and actually do 2 cuts within the studio, like the old school days. And it worked out great. Didn't yield a hit. Oh, it worked out great. This time around, we just yield to the norm. And the norm is, myself, Felton, KC, Prince. We got a new producer named, Prince Damons. We all have studios, and we just simply transfer the file to them, and they do their thing, and then they retransfer the file to someone else or the mixer, and then the mixer does his thing, and then he send us a MP3 to see if we like it. It's just all internet, and I gotta tell you, it's not fun. It's just necessary. It's a necessity. It's necessary to get it done. The fun would be if you had a big budget and you just do the entire album in the studio. In 2024, do the whole album in some big LA studio. That would be fun.
Well, we often talk about this on the show. Yeah. Technology is a double-edged sword.
Yep.
Yeah. On one hand, it's amazing that you can now record what used to take tons of money. You can now do, as you said, in a hotel room and you're at your house, what have you.
Yeah.
So in that aspect of it, it's great.
Yeah.
However, there's nothing like being in a studio, everybody together, playing together.
Yep. Yep. We have another album that we're going to do. And the name of this next album is going to call Scarborough Fair. Can you figure out what it's about?
Let me guess, a bunch of Skip songs.
Yep. Scarborough Fair. It was going to be full of nothing but Skip Scarborough songs. Love's Holiday, Can't Hide Love, Lovely Day. We just going to do all Skip Scarborough stuff, but we're going to put a little twist on it that Skip might approve of. Put a little twist, a Confunkshun twist on it all. And we're going to do the next one. It'll be called Scarborough Fair. So we'll go from the smooth jukebox to the Scarborough Fair, right? And within that time frame, hopefully, by the time we get to the Scarborough Fair, my new book will be ready. And the Love Train, On Love's Train, the Life, the Loves, the Man, the Music.
Tell me this, you're going to do Giving You the Best That I Got on the Scarborough Fair?
Oh, Nita Baker. Yeah. Yeah. Let me tell you something, man. Do you know that I just realized that he wrote that song? I've been loving the song for 20 years, right? I've always loved the song for its chord progressions and its melody. I didn't find out for about till we started saying we're going to do the Scarborough Fair, just like you asked me, right? I found out then that Skip wrote Giving You the Best That I Got. So to answer your question, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Tell you what, her whole album, that album is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorite albums.
Absolutely crazy. Love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me this, Michael. I know we're coming up on our time here. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to cover, but folks, when your book comes out, they can get those stories there. Is there anything else you want to make sure we touch on before we wrap this one up?
Well, we can definitely touch on this. The Confunkshun has got a pack, a pinky pack, me and Felton. As long as we're standing upright, breathing, arthritis will allow, vocals will allow. We are drug-free, we're alcohol-free. As long as we keep breathing and keep singing, you will always hear music, new music from Confunkshun. We'll always be out there on that road and bringing it to you. And we want to tell everybody, thank you. We love you from the bottom of our toes to the top of our heads. We love you guys for keeping Confunkshun out here, still doing it in our 70s for 55 years. Love you guys.
That's a beautiful thing. All right, Michael, we'll tell you what. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us here. Everybody, thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Love you, man. Thank you so much.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.